What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Occupy Fantasy. We're here with MMA DFS DraftKings picks, UFC 269 card best bets, lineup advice, FanDuel, DraftKings, tips, strategies, picks, bets, predictions, all the keywords. We're doing everything here for you. 10-15 minute video. Get you prepared for this pay-per-view card on Saturday. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, joined by Jake the Snake, owner of MMADFS.com, writer of the Daily Plug at OccupyFantasy.com. Jake, happy pay-per-view slate.
Yeah, man, what's going on? It's a big slate. Got a second to last slate of the year. I'm excited.
I know. Second to last slate of the year. The year has flown by for all the sports, especially UFC. You get a little break coming up here shortly, which I'm sure you'll get ahead on all of your work. So I'm super excited for that for you. So UFC 269, we have two main events, 2 5-rounders: Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Amanda Nunes, and Pena. So let's jump into it. She's such an underdog. I'm struggling to even get her name out in the first 2 minutes of the show. But this is what we do for this show. So we talk about the main events, predictions for them, more importantly, how to handle those main events for your DFS lineups. We talk about fights that we want to target both sides of in our tournament lineups. Any newcomers, that'll be a short segment this week. We don't have any. Low-owned tournament fighters that we want to target. We'll give our best bets for the card. We'll do a little stream parlay. And then a new segment this week. We want to stick around to the very end where I'll ask Jake about every single fighter on the card, and he'll give a one-word answer on how to handle them in tournaments. I'm sure you'll like that. So stick around to the end. So, Jake, let's jump into it. The first main event, Nunes, Pena. Nunes, monster favorite. And then in the second main event, we have Poirier, who's the challenger, as the slight favorite. Money's moving in some interesting ways. But before we get into individual fights, talk to me about the pay-per-view aspect, the 2 5-round aspect, what it means for low-risk contests, and what it means for high-risk contests on DraftKings.
Yeah, so, we've had, like 6 of these or something this year. I think the last 2 have been 2 5-round fights, and those ones have been kind of fluky. We've seen back-to-back fight stacks in those, which we're definitely not recommending here. Before that, we had 4 3-rounders. So one thing is we've seen at least one 5-round fighter in every winning lineup in all of those multi-5-round slates. So right off the bat, you want to have at least one 5-round fighter in all of your high-risk DraftKings lineups. Seems obvious, but at the same time, maybe you're thinking, that's the way to get leverage. Have at least one. So that's kind of the basis for high risk. For low risk, we kind of decided on this slate, you want to have exactly 3. So 2 of the favorites. Pick your underdog, whether it's Pena or Oliveira, depending on kind of how the salary works out. Obviously Oliveira has a higher upside and a higher projection than Pena. Pena is cheaper, so the only reason you're going to play her in low risk over Oliveira is if it lets you, just build like a super lineup around that. So 3 of those guys in low risk, at least 1 in high risk. And you probably want to get 2. There's a really good chance we're going to see 2 5-round fighters in high risk, but I would definitely not stack either of these fights, despite the fact that the last 2, I guess it was October 30th and November 6th, we saw back-to-back weeks with a fight stack end up in the optimal, completely fluky. Do not stack it. So that's kind of the basis for where we're going in DraftKings there for the low risk and high risk.
Yeah, and the key is both of those fight stacks. 1, we have very little underdogs win on those slates, and 2, both those fights went 5 rounds. Neither one of these main events on this card are expected to go 5 rounds, so that's another big difference for if you ever wanted to fight stack in high risk contests. Again, that's something we do not recommend. So let's talk about Nunes, Pena. Jake, Nunes, obviously one of the top options on the board. Highest ranked fighter in our model, massive money line favorite. How are you handling her? And how crazy is it to play Pena in high risk contests?
It's pretty crazy, man. I get that she's projected at like 7% ownership. So, it's literally the biggest leverage spot on the slate. Nunes is the highest owned. Pena is the lowest owned fighter. There's a reason that Amanda Nunes is a negative 1,000 favorite. She opened at negative 800 and she got bet up to negative 1,000. People are betting her at negative 800. Wow. So that just shows you the confidence levels in Nunes if people are actually going to bet that line. The odds are so low that Pena wins. It's a fight. There could always be an injury. Nunes is coming back down to 135 pounds after 2 years up at 145 pounds. Who knows? Maybe something weird with the weight cut affects her, but I mean, I guess if you want to match the field, if you're doing 150 lineups and you want to match the field on Pena so that if it does hit, you're going to at least get some benefit from it. I guess I get it. But if you're doing like a 20 max, I would just, leave her out. I don't think you really need to play her. I mean, Nunes is literally the best female MMA fighter of all time. They can't find competition for her. So they're just throwing her people. This isn't like a normal title fight where it's like, oh, this is going to be competitive. It's just Nunes beating people.
Yeah, super rough for the division, and rough for her, right? Because, like you said, there's really not much competition, and Pena is a little bit interesting because of that weight cut. And I was going to exclude Pena from my 150, but reading your stuff about the weight cut, and you never know what could happen. Again, tournaments, we always expect the unexpected. So 7%, I'll have a little bit of exposure. How does Nunes, in a win, get left out of optimal lineups?
So yeah, I mean, we saw it last time. She had a hyper efficient win against Megan Anderson. She only scored 99 points. She ended up being in the winning lineup, but not the optimal lineup, and that's just because she was so highly owned that she still ended up in there because no one hit the optimal. But if she scores 100 points from a super hyper efficient win like last time with no knockdown, no takedown, she's the most expensive fighter on the slate. So I mean, she can easily get outscored by people like Sean O'Malley, Bruno Silva, Randy Costa. I mean, all these people can put up massive scores, and if two of them outscore, I mean, that's how she gets left out, even with a good score. But she also has the highest floor and highest ceiling on the slate, so there's a really good chance that she is the highest scorer. And if she is, and she's 60% owned, you're in trouble if you go under on her.
I mean, we're talking about like a 90-point floor, which is insane in a win. So it's pretty nuts. Now let's talk about the more competitive main event, the likely more competitive main event. Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier. I know you're on the Poirier side of this one. Talk to me why you like him more in this fight, and then play a little contrarian angle for me and tell me how Oliveira defends the belt successfully.
Yes, I mean, I think the main thing is if you look at the schedules that these guys have had to get to where they are, I mean, it's night and day. If you look at who Oliveira beat to get the belt, I mean, I was telling you earlier in the week, I think that the worst person that Poirier beat is better than the best person that Oliveira beat. I mean, it's just crazy. Like the strength of schedule is it's so insane. I mean, a guy wins the vacant belt, I feel like we should treat them a little bit different than if they beat the former champion to become the champion. I mean, this guy beat Michael Chandler, who was in his second UFC fight, to get a vacant belt that Khabib left behind, while Poirier is out there beating McGregor. I mean, it sort of feels like the Poirier McGregor was, I mean, like Poirier said, that was sort of the title fight. And meanwhile, Chandler and Oliveira are fighting for what's technically the belt, but I mean, would you say those are the best two fighters in the division? I mean, I wouldn't personally,
no,
but sure so I mean, the belt seems kind of like a technicality there. So I mean, in a lot of ways, I mean, you could almost consider Poirier the champion in this. He's the favorite. I mean, I know that's not the case, but I mean, that's kind of my feeling coming in. I feel like Oliveira, we've seen him fold in the past. If you go back to that Paul Felder fight, I know that was 10 fights ago now, but he literally tapped out to an elbow in the second round. Like he's getting elbowed. Like most guys, they take it. Oliveira just quit. He's like, I don't want to fight anymore. That's not really the heart of the champion, in my opinion. Meanwhile, you get Poirier going 5 rounds with Dan Hooker. These guys are murdering each other, and he's, refusing to quit. I think Poirier, I think he's just going to find a way to win. And he's obviously a way better striker. Oliveira, one of the best submission artists on the planet, but I just don't see him submitting Poirier. I mean, it could happen, but Poirier is a black belt too. I mean, he's not helpless on the mat or anything. I think Poirier keeps it standing. I think Oliveira is going to have a lot of trouble with Poirier. I think Poirier gets a knockout in the first 2 rounds here.
Very aggressive stance, Jake. I love it. That's why we love working with you. That's why I love doing these shows. You take the stances and you go all in them, so I really do appreciate that. I will say, Oliveira, he faced some adversity recently and battled back okay. But again, we'll see how much he can handle from Poirier in the first couple of rounds because it could get dangerous pretty quickly. So let's move on to the next segment, which is UFC fighters making their debut. And we can skip it because this pay-per-view has literally no fighters making their debut. That's kind of sucks for us. It's great from a content creation perspective because we don't have to study these fighters, but it kind of sucks from a leverage angle and what the field knows. But we do what we can, and we work with what's handed to us. Now let's talk about fights we want to target outside of the main events. Fights that we like both sides. We expect whoever wins to produce a high-scoring DraftKings or FanDuel number. Jake, give me 1 or 2 fights you're looking at.
I mean, I feel like the obvious one is going to be the Randy Costa-Tony Kelly fight. Randy Costa has never been in a fight that made it past the middle of the second round. All of his wins have come by round 1 KO in 135 seconds or less. Both of his losses have come early in round 2, where he just fades hard at the beginning of the round. So, I mean, it's almost like a round 2 win by default for his opponents. I mean, there was some rumors or, noise around that he was going to try to slow it down a little bit. I'm not sure he's capable of doing that, but I mean, that would be the one reason not to be all in on this fight. But I want heavy exposure to both sides. I think it's going to either be a Costa first round KO or a Kelly second round, probably submission. And I don't really see a lot of other outcomes there. Both of those are going to score great. I mean, this is a slate where we're trying to find underdogs, which are always harder on pay-per-view slates. Tony Kelly's only $7,200 on DraftKings and $11 on FanDuel. If he can survive 5 minutes, I think he has a really good chance of getting a second round finish and ending up in the optimal. Tony Kelly has never been finished in his career. Pretty short career. He's only got 9 pro fights, but it's a good sign for surviving 5 minutes. So I like both guys. Whoever wins that fight, I think, has a huge ceiling. The other ones I'm looking at, I mean, another obvious one is going to be Jordan Wright, who's also never been past the second round. Another guy, basically all of his fights end in round 1.
Your boy.
I think that's definitely your boy. Yeah, I've been on team anti Wright, which is generally wrong since he's been in the UFC. But somehow Jordan Wright's 2-1.
He's a
super
beast.
fluky wins. Yeah, he cut open Ike Villanueva, got that doctor stoppage in his first fight. His last fight, he was just throwing elbows along the fence and gets a knockout. The only time he had a real competitor was against Buckley, and he got knocked out violently at the early round 2. It was almost late round 1. I think that's what happens here. I think Bruno Silva just murders this kid. But, Wright has found ways somehow to win. So you're gonna want to have a little bit of hedge to Bruno Silva, but Silva looks like the play here. You hedge it a little bit with Wright, and that's why it's a fight to target.
Absolutely. I mean, both these fights should produce a high score and a quick finish in round 1. Both are very high possibility. So definitely 2 fights that you want to target there. Jake, as we've seen in the last couple of slates, but this one, it's pretty top heavy as far as ownership goes. We see a couple fighters that are above 30%, a couple above 50%, and then we see a bunch that are below that 25% mark. So a little bit spread out ownership. So it's kind of easy actually to find under-owned fighters, those low-owned pieces to add to your tournament lineups. My favorite of the group is Jillian Robertson. She's actually the cover girl of the Daily Plug, which I'll pull up here now. And you and I both like her as a tournament play. Just give me a brief synopsis of why you like her, what we expect her ownership to be, and then maybe if you have any other low-owned fighters that you're thinking about.
I mean, I absolutely love Robertson in this spot. I mean, this is a great spot for Robertson. Pure grappler going against a pure striker. She's had 2 terrible fights recently, but they were against really strong grapplers. I think this is a great bounce-back spot. She's going to be super low owned at 9,300. So totally love Robertson as a low owned option. I think she smashes. That's why she's the cover girl. I also like Anders here. I think that's kind of gross, but as a dog, which I think on a slate like this, like we all know, like there's a bunch of good plays at the top, and there's also Jillian Robertson as a great leverage play, who's a great play, but she'll be low owned. But I think the key to this slate is finding the dogs that win, because these pay-per-view slates generally have fewer dogs winning. So I think it's really going to be important to focus in on some of those people. And I think Anders has a really good shot here. He's never been submitted. He's going against a guy in Andre Muniz, who's a really, really good submission specialist, but doesn't really have any ground game. Muniz has been knocked out in all 4 of his career losses. I think 3 were in round 1, another was in round 2. Andrews has generally been kind of this like decision guy, but he's definitely got power. He's coming down from 205. The last time he fought at 185, he was about to get this crazy point scoring round 1 KO over Darren Stewart, and he throws an illegal knee. The fight is a no contest instead of scoring 140 points. I think that he has the potential to knock out Muniz there. I think he's a pretty interesting dog play, and he projects it like 12% ownership right now.
Love to see that. And again, on pay-per-view slates where we have more known commodities and the lines are sharper and there's not as much of an edge playing underdogs and fewer underdogs do indeed win on pay-per-view slates, you got to try to find reasons to play some underdogs. And I love your reasoning for Anders. All right, a new segment before we get out of here, Jake. Really, we've had some questions about different fighters that we don't cover in the videos, and obviously there's all the content that we produce. But I want to do a quick hitting segment. We'll see how the people like. If you guys like this section or this segment, comment on the video after it's published. Let us know what you think of it. Basically, Jake, what I'm going to do, I'm going to rapid fire give you every single fighter on the card, and in the lingo of our lineup builder, which if you haven't checked out, occupyfantasy.com/lineup builder allows you to build up to 150 lineups for all sports. You have the thumbs up option in the lineup builder, which tells the builder to give me more of this fighter. We also have the exclude option, which tells the builder to not include this fighter in any of my lineups. So, Jake, it's a very aggressive stance here, but I'm going to give you a fighter name, and you're going to respond with thumbs up, which means you want more than the field. Or if you have to choose, exclude and have 0 of that fighter in your tournament lineups. How's that sound?
That's pretty crazy, but let's give it a shot.
All right. We're going from biggest money line to the coin flip. So Nunes.
I mean, definitely got to have Nunes in there. I mean, that's a big thumbs up.
Pena.
I think you can exclude her. You know, we're not going over.
Silva.
That's over. Thumbs up.
Right.
Gross thumbs up.
Hell yeah. Jillian Robertson.
Massive thumbs up. You do 2 thumbs up?
Double thumbs up for Robertson. Her opponent, Cachoeira.
I think because we're going 2 thumbs up, you want to have Cachoeira in there as a thumbs up just because Robertson doesn't have a striking game. And if somehow Cachoeira keeps it on the feet, you know, we're looking for dog, super cheap dog. I mean, she's coming off back-to-back knockouts. I know that's kind of a long explanation, but thumbs up.
Okay. The most difficult decision for me in this game, Sean O'Malley.
I mean, you got to be under in tournaments, and if the only options exclude, then we're going to have to exclude him.
Hell yeah, I'm on board. His opponent, Paiva.
I mean, you almost want to play him because you're excluding O'Malley, but I'm excluding O'Malley because I think the other top fighters outscore him. So I'm gonna exclude both those guys.
I like it. All right, Costa and Kelly. That's both a thumbs up, right?
Both a thumbs up for sure.
Hall and Minner, I assume both are excludes, but I don't know how you feel about Minner exactly.
I'm excluding both of them. I think Hall wins a lower scoring fight there, so exclude them both.
Emmett.
Exclude.
Ige.
I'm still under on Ige too. I think that fight ends in a lower scoring decision, and I think Ige is going to be kind of popular. Exclude.
All right, Garbrandt moving down to flyweight.
That one's tricky. That's such a high variance spot. But Garbrandt's so expensive, and he's definitely a round 1 or bust play. And Kai France hasn't been knocked out in 29 fights, so I'm going to exclude him.
All right, and what about Kai?
I think you have to play Kai here. You have to include him. We're looking for dogs. It's a high variance spot. He doesn't really have power in his hands. I don't really see him getting a knockout, but maybe Garbrandt looks terrible. I feel like you have to include Kai.
Agree. Poirier, thumbs up for you, right?
Yeah, big thumbs up.
And Oliveira, you're excluding in this scenario?
I'm under on Oliveira, so I'm excluding.
Deal. All right, Muniz.
I'm going to get thumbs up. I'm over on both sides of this fight.
All right, so thumbs up for Muniz and Anders. 4 more fights. Big card. Miranda Maverick.
I'm going to exclude her. I think that this is going to be kind of a stalemate fight. I think both fighters are actually going to be popular, even though it's a women's fight, and that's generally a little bit lower owned. I think these are both big names. We got Blanchfield leading the slate in average scoring after her massive debut. She's going to be overowned. Maverick's always overowned. I think it's going to be a popular fight, and I think it's going to end in a lower scoring decision. I'm going to exclude.
I agree. I think they definitely cancel each other out there. All right, Tuivasa.
I'm going to exclude. He's got 3 round 1 KOs. There is no way this guy continues it. Big step up in competition for him. Exclude. He's a round 1 or bust, and he's going to be overowned.
Love that one. Sakai.
That I'm gonna thumbs up him. I'm not gonna be super over on him, but I think that he's a pretty good shot for a later KO. And again, we're looking for dogs, and I think he wins the fight. So I gotta include him. Thumbs up.
All right. Ponzinibbio.
This is a tricky one. Jeff Neal looks like he's on drugs.
Dude, okay. I'm glad you said it because, I mean, yeah.
He's not fighting the way he used to. I mean, there's a lot of rumors talking about what's going on. He had the health scare. He just got charged with a DUI. Jeff Neal is not the Jeff Neal of old. I was big on Jeff Neal last time in a bounce back spot, and he did not bounce back. It was a letdown spot. He looked terrible against Neil Magny. I don't know if he's ever going to come back. He used to be a really explosive fighter. He looked really sluggish in his last fight. I'm not going to keep betting on him all of a sudden being the old Jeff Neal until he proves it. So it's excluded until he proves it.
And you're excluding Ponzinibbio too?
So the deal with Ponzinibbio is I think he wins. I think it's probably a decision, and I think he needs a round one finish to win. So, yeah, I think we got to be under on him too. He's also going to be kind of popular, so exclude.
For sure. All right, final fight. Pedro Munoz and Dominic Cruz. Munoz.
He's at least interesting, but I'm excluding both sides of this one. I think that both guys are like a round one KO or bust. I don't see it happening. I think it ends in a lower scoring decision.
Cool. So if you guys watched this, you liked it, let us know in the comments. And we always get questions the day of the fights. What do you think about this guy for tournaments? Go rewind this segment, listen to Jake's quick hitting thoughts. Jake, before we get out of here, our stream parlay, we got to hit 1 this year, dude. We're like over 50. I'm going to go with Jillian Robertson, round 2 sub. We're going to try to get back in the black here all at once. So plus 550, Jillian Robertson, round 2 sub. What do you got?
Let's go. On that theme, I'm going to go Kelly round 2 win at plus 1,200.
Ooh.
I'm going to get us right back in there quickly. No more messing around. No more safe lines. All ins only. So plus 1,200 and plus 550. That should be plus 83.50. Getting right back in there.
Oh, we'll be in good shape. We'll be rolling the last week of the UFC season. So that'll do it for this video. We always appreciate you listening, as always. Check out Jake's work at MMADFS.com. He has the sheet, which breaks down every single fight on the week, betting and DFS implications. He also has some premium content over there, so make sure you check it out. Jake also writes the Daily Plug, OccupyFantasy.com, top low-risk and high-risk plays for FanDuel and DraftKings, his best bets, as well as lineup construction tips for both sites, all contest types. You don't want to miss it. Our Occupy model, which you saw on screen earlier, ranks every fighter, FanDuel and DraftKings with projected ownership. And our aforementioned lineup builder allows you to optimally build lineups for MMA DFS contests. So you can follow Jake on Twitter at DFS_MMA. Follow me at Brian Jester FF. Follow us at Occupy Fantasy. Good luck and enjoy UFC 269.